The Bazaar is the best digital card game I've played in nearly a decade. It's inspired, complex, and incredibly satisfying, a game so addicting that it genuinely cut into my work productivity. Despite closed beta only launching at the end of October last year, it was by far my most played game of 2024. Unfortunately, the move from closed beta to open beta has been accompanied by decisions that have made me worried about the long-term potential for the game, most specifically in regards to the monetization. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how fantastic the game is at its core, but also how in its current state, it's one of the most aggressively monetized auto battlers on the market, with a cost potentially double or triple that of its most similar competitor if you want to constantly keep up. For those only interested in the monetization aspect of this video, feel free to skip to this point on the screen. The Bazaar is a deck-building auto-battler with asynchronous PvP, combining elements of games like Auto Chess, Hearthstone Battlegrounds, and Slay the Spire to create something incredibly unique and well-designed. Players build the board over the course of a dozen or so rounds, building synergies and finding new cards through events and PvE battles, before testing these boards against other players with the goal of winning 10 rounds before losing all their HP. The objective is to build a powerful board using a combination of the many mechanics on offer. This board of items will be matched against opponents' boards with cards attacking or triggering their effects based on a cooldown. A simple example is this card, which has the effect of dealing 6 damage and applying 6 shield to your character every 6 seconds. To win each fight, you need to reduce your opponent's health to 0 before they do the same to you, using effects ranging from damage to healing, shields, a few flavors of damage over time, and buff and debuff effects like hasting and slowing. Cards can range from simple to synergy-focused and complex scaling effects that require skill to utilize effectively. These cards can also be upgraded by finding duplicates in order to scale their effects over the course of a full match. You'll also get access to passive skills that can range from small buffs to build-around effects and the ability to enchant items, such as adding a shield effect to an item that didn't originally have it. The general flow of a game works like this. Each round is made up of 6 days, 4 of which are random events, 1 of which is a PvE battle, and 1 of which is a battle against the board of another player. These 4 random events consist of shops as well as special events and encounters with 3 options given to the player each time. PvE fights award gold and XP based on their difficulty and also have a chance to drop one of the items on the computer's board. This may seem like a lot of randomness for a PvP game, but in actuality it ends up being the opposite. Each event having 3 choices, which almost always involve more choices within those choices, means the player is constantly given the opportunity to make meaningful and thoughtful deductions on what option most furthers their game plan or allows them to pivot to another game plan. Each round is a branching series of decision points that can lead a game in dozens of different directions based on how smart the player is with those decisions. Seeing a build come together in the late game because of these early game choices is incredibly satisfying, and the game still leaves individual events important enough that a single specific upgrade or enchantment can change the game drastically. It's a near perfect mix of deliberate and dynamic. The battles themselves are a cascade of dozens of effects happening rapid fire, each player having up to 10 items ranging from short cooldowns to long cooldowns to automatic triggers means it can be extremely chaotic. But as PvE fights give you a general idea of what your build is capable of, it's far easier to parse what's happening in the PvP battles. Those PvP battles also serve as a great learning tool to guide new players on what sorts of builds work. It's a simple dot to connect when something wipes the floor with you that it's a synergy you should look out for the next time around. Perhaps the biggest strength of the game is the variation between each character. Similar to Slay the Spire, each hero has their own card pool as well as exclusive skill options and mechanics. The only way to get cards outside your class is through somewhat rare random events, meaning you'll be mostly operating within each character's unique 100 card set and the synergies contained. The 3 heroes available at beta launch are varied and interesting, although balance has been an issue throughout the closed beta period. Vanessa is the default hero with aggressive weapon strategies as well as a variety of damage over time builds mixing in powerful sustain options. Pygmalion trades early game strength for a larger amount of endgame builds, including ones focused on scaling massive shield items and freezing enemy cooldowns. And Dooley is by far the most interesting, with a near endless amount of strategy stemming from him starting with a core item that serves as an early game build around. At various points I've had a fantastic time playing each one of them, and each one has occupied the top spot in the meta at some point. While you eventually migrate to a short list of meta builds with each, the strength of late game skills and enchantments can create branches off those builds that play almost entirely differently. The visual and audio design is the least standout aspect by virtue of just being fine instead of fantastic. The cards themselves being static images with progress bars is admittedly less interesting than many other auto battlers, although the card art and art direction itself is strong. Sound design is also pretty clearly something that's still being nailed down, as early beta was plagued with awkwardly mixed shield effects clanging off every 3 seconds, and while it's improved since, there's still more to go. But overall, the Bazaar is masterfully put together. It has so many bits and pieces polished to a point that reflects its long development time. The game flow is expertly executed, card design is strong despite balance issues, and the swift scaling of power in the endgame feels amazing, especially after the opening rounds of watching 2 weak items fill up very slowly. While balance is something that needs to be adjusted as the game goes along, the very base of the game, what it is at its most simple, is so damn good that I fully expected this to be my game of the year for 2025. And that's what this video was just going to be about, although likely with a padded out word count so it would have been longer than 5 minutes. Frustratingly, the Bazaar has fallen victim to a trap so many free-to-play games have fallen into in the past, in that its stellar gameplay isn't the whole package. The monetization in this game has been the major story since its open beta launch, with angry mobs of card game nerds gathering on Reddit and Discord to voice their complaints, and Tempo Storm CEO Reynad angrily responding to these complaints in a less than ideal way. As far as Tempo is concerned, I don't care too much about the somewhat pointed way in which he's answered criticisms, for the simple reason that people on Reddit and Discord are indeed very stupid a lot of the time, like this post claiming that somehow the Bazaar is now a gacha. I have been to the depths of gacha hell, and it is a far darker place than this. His responses are unprofessional in the sense that it causes problems for employees lower down the chain, but in the end it's not a major source of concern for me. What is concerning from Tempo is this statement, which as of right now is still up on their Indiegogo page.
The Bazaar is neither pay to win nor pay to play. The Bazaar is truly free to play. The biggest pain point I wanted to solve for card game players is the pay to win model. In my game, you start the game with a couple classes unlocked. Those classes have all the cards in the game for them. Your class is just as balanced as any other. As more classes get introduced to the game, you'll have the option of unlocking them, either by spending money or in-game currency. If you feel like giving the Bazaar a try, you won't have to feel like you're starting over from scratch and giving up the investment you've put into other card games. The game board itself will also be customizable, with themes and contraptions, and all cards will have golden or alternate art versions. Most of the revenue will come from cosmetics. Think of it monetizing like a traditional MOBA.
What you say as a company matters, and if things are going to change due to unforeseen issues in development, when a statement as definitive and central as this is put on a page asking people for money, you only have 2 options if you want to keep the trust of your early supporters. Stick to your word despite these issues, or clearly and in great detail explain why the change has been made. Some would argue the latter option isn't even enough, and that's entirely within their right as someone who financially supported a project. Although personally, when a game this good comes out, I want to see it succeed, and I'm willing to cut a lot more slack than I would with most things I spend my money on. So I want to go through the monetization in this game at beta launch to see if it lives up to the goal of not being pay to win. I dislike the concept of outrage farming, and as such I try to be as thorough with this as possible instead of just parroting the popular opinion. For this section, I reached out to Tempo Storm for comment and details on battle pass mechanics, started a free-to-play account to get a general idea of what the experience would be like, and we'll start by setting the baseline for what other games within the auto battler space generally charge for and how much they charge for it. I am just one person and I haven't extensively played all the options on the market, but I have played quite a few of them. I also reached out to Tempo Storm with 2 main questions. The first referencing the previous Indiegogo statement and asking when the idea of adding card packs first occurred and why that decision was made, and the second asking why they felt this inclusion did not qualify as pay to win. They have not responded to these questions at the time of the video, but if a response is given, I will pin a comment with that response below. By far the biggest auto battler on the market is Teamfight Tactics, which is entirely free with cosmetic-only microtransactions. This is perhaps a bit unfair because it's built into the League of Legends client and doesn't have to make as many new assets. But fair or not to the developers, for players their most popular alternate option is completely free. Hearthstone Battlegrounds is the most popular in terms of card-based auto battlers. The price to access all the non-cosmetic content in that game comes in the form of a $15 to $20 battle pass that refreshes 3 times a year, for a price of $45 to $60 over the course of a year that cannot be purchased with in-game currency. Other traditional auto chess titles in the past, such as Drodo Auto Chess and Dota Underlords, have also been cosmetic only, and smaller indie titles such as Super Auto Pets and Backpack Battles are not aggressively monetized. The full amount of non-cosmetic content added to Super Auto Pets over its 3+ year lifespan totals to about $35 or around $10 a year, and Backpack Battles is a $13 one-time purchase but admittedly is still in early access. A similar game I haven't played called Skill Legends Royale seems to be more aggressively monetized, but it's difficult for me to make that direct comparison. Storybook Brawl, an auto battler I played quite a bit of before it shut down as a result of the FTX bankruptcy, no, seriously that happened, also had a relatively hefty price tag to unlock all of its hero choices if you didn't want to spend in-game currency. But as we'll go over in a second, that was the only thing to spend in-game currency on, which is not the case in the Bazaar. Outside of Hearthstone Battlegrounds and Teamfight Tactics, the games I've mentioned are in various stages of development, ranging from actively being worked on to outright abandoned to still very much a thing but mostly just in China. So while TFT and Hearthstone Battlegrounds aren't perfect analogs, those two are the most likely points of comparison. There are 3 major aspects of monetization at beta launch in the Bazaar, which we'll be going through in order from most acceptable to least. Keep in mind that every single aspect of this is subject to, and in fact very likely to change. I can only judge what the monetization is in the current build, and hopefully in the future we'll have an opportunity to do a follow-up video with any improvements. The first and most acceptable aspect is the addition of new heroes. Each hero in this game is in essence going to be an entire expansion worth of cards, strategies, keywords, and synergies. Given how drastically different and interesting the heroes in the base game are, I would personally have no problem paying for content of this quality. This would still place it among the pricier auto battlers and perhaps past what a lot of people would pay. The 2 additional heroes available in the base game list a price of $25 worth of in-game currency. But if this was the only thing you were saving up for, it's reasonable to expect you'd be able to pay for 1 or 2 of these with gems earned from normal play. $50 to $75 a year is far more than I think a lot of people would pay, but purely from a personal opinion standpoint, I'm willing to pay that price for a game that, based on my play patterns from closed beta, I'd probably play for at least 100 hours over the course of a year. If this was all there was, the price would be comparable to Hearthstone Battlegrounds. A little pricier, but with content that's worth the price. Unfortunately, there are several more sources of monetization here. One of the more unique and, in my opinion, detrimental aspects of the game is that cosmetics are linked to ranked play, which means that entering ranked play costs gems and rewards you with random cosmetics based on your performance. You'll get 1, 2, and 3 chests at 4, 7, and 10 wins respectively, with 10 wins being the max you can achieve and the goal of each run. You'll get some gems back for each chest as well, meaning if you go 10 wins every time, you'll be able to access ranked play infinitely while also getting cosmetic items. In my experience, going 7 wins each time, a mark far above what most people will reach, would not be enough to consistently recoup the gems used to enter, although you can get lucky with these random chests. This means that most players will be running at a small loss in order to access the ranked mode and cosmetic items, whichever one of those you'll be interested in. The issue is that for a lot of people, ranked mode is the game. Having a goal to work towards and a reward for doing well is what drives a lot of people in PvP games, even if they're asynchronous. By linking the ranked play to cosmetics, it forces people who want to engage in that ranked PvP to slowly whittle away their gems in exchange for cosmetics they might not care about, and prevent them from using gems on new characters or the expansions we'll talk about next. This is where I'm going to get a bit into the numbers, because there are daily and weekly quests that allow you to advance the battle pass, with the free version containing ranked play tickets that will allow you to enter without paying a gem cost. This gives you access to the mode without having to dip into your gem supply. Previously in closed beta, it allowed for 1 free ranked play per day, but theoretically that number has gone up 50%, with 45 tickets being available in a battle pass that lasts for 1 month. The issue here is the amount of time investment involved in earning these tickets is far higher than it was from just logging in. A developer at Tempo provided me with these numbers for the amount of XP needed to max out the battle pass. It scales up so you'll get a lot of tickets early, but to get all 45 tickets you'll need 13,750 experience. Your source for XP is 3 daily challenges for 100 XP and 3 weekly challenges for 500. There's also an incredibly small amount of XP you get for each in-game round completed, but we'll put it aside as it's negligible and tough to accurately forecast. This puts the maximum amount of earnable XP from challenges for a 30-day month at 15,000. You may have noticed that's an incredibly tight window, as you'll only be able to miss around 1200 XP or 4 days worth of dailies in order to max out the pass. Even accounting for the round-based experience would only change this by a day or two. The weeklies aren't worth worrying about too much. If you're getting all the dailies, you'll likely get them without trying. The dailies, though, are a massive issue. It's unreasonable with the way some of these are structured, and with only one reroll that you'll constantly complete them in one game, requiring 2 or sometimes more in order to max out XP gain. Games in the Bazaar take anywhere from 30 minutes to well over an hour, which means this is a massive daily time investment to stay on track, especially considering of these 90 quests available in this scenario, you have to complete an insane 78 of them. It is at this point you will probably not be surprised to learn that there is an option to subscribe for $10 a month, which will make this process far easier by doubling XP gain and the amount of chests you get from ranked play, allowing you to almost certainly play infinitely. Most of the monetization complaints are centered around the expansion packs, but this aspect to me is the worst. It's not directly pay to win, but it's a classic example of creating the problem to sell the solution. There is no reason this subscription shouldn't just be included with the battle pass, because as we'll talk about shortly, even monthly battle passes would run you $120 a year, and they cannot be bought with in-game currency. The fact that there's a subscription option in this game on top of the battle pass is wild, and I cannot believe it exists. I will be cynically positive here though. Of all the things that are likely to be adjusted and fixed, I think the battle pass progression is the most likely. It is beneficial from a business perspective to have players engaging in near constant ranked play, as it gets them in the cosmetic ecosystem and directs them both towards subscribing and the battle pass. I don't expect the subscription fee to go away, but I expect it to be easier for non-subscribers to max out the pass without making the game a part-time job. Would this make the existence of a subscription option more justifiable? Fuck no, moving on. The last bit of monetization is the Battle Pass itself, a $10 monthly cost that can't be bought with in-game currency. The free track contains the ranked tickets, while the paid track contains cosmetic chests, seasonal cosmetics, and cards. The first pass contains 2 expansions of 10 cards each, and while there is a problem here in that just adding new heroes won't keep old ones fresh, this is the wrong way and the wrong price to solve it. For those who aren't shelling out the $120 a year for each pass, the cards are available in gems for twice that amount once the pass is over, at 999 gems each, the equivalent of $20 in-game currency if you're buying both. To put everything so far into perspective, if you were to pay for the content released over a year, you would need to spend the equivalent of $340 a year in in-game currency, or $220 out of pocket. Even if they dial the expansions back to 1 a month, it's still that $220 figure in in-game currency, in a game where you have to use that currency to access the ranked mode. And these Battle Pass card expansions provide in-game benefits with cards that unlock new builds and which may or may not end up being overpowered. There's already one Vanessa card that's outrageous and only available to paying customers, and some of the Pygmalion cards have already been nerfed. If you play this game right now without paying, in my opinion, you are at a disadvantage. And even if you want to pay the increased price in in-game currency, you don't even have the option until a month down the line when the cards might have already been nerfed. If you have played an auto battler before, I shouldn't have to explain how unacceptable this is. This is an unlevel playing field. Moving to a comparison, Super Auto Pets actually has card expansions too, but in addition to being far less expensive and far less frequent, you have the option when matchmaking to only face people who have the same packs as you. But even if the Bazaar had that option, this would still be an unacceptable price to pay yearly to keep up with the game, and would cause a massive issue to new players who join a few months down the line. To illustrate this, let's look at what happens if you start a fresh account today. You're given one free hero, that being Vanessa, and access to the free version of the Battle Pass giving you ranked tickets. The first hero you buy costs $5 in in-game currency, which is a reasonable amount for a new player to end up getting out of their initial ranked tickets, despite the fact that they're given a fat 0 gems to start. After that, the second hero is $20 in in-game currency, and each subsequent one costs $25. This is in addition to ranked mode costing gems to access, and expansions costing $10 each being added every month, which means a new player will essentially have to choose between accessing the ranked mode, which is again basically the point of the game for a lot of people, and saving up for new heroes and cards, while still being very unlikely to actually earn gems at a pace that allows them to keep up without shelling money for the Battle Pass subscriptions or heroes. The monetization in this game at the moment, in my opinion, is full stop unacceptable, and a hard deal breaker for anyone looking to play the game until it's resolved. Some may argue that card games are inherently expensive, with Magic the Gathering grandfathering in acceptability for exorbitant costs in the the space. I cannot disagree with this argument more. Your closest competition costs either a fraction of what the Bazaar is on pace to cost or is completely free. Just because there are other things with worse monetization doesn't mean monetization this egregious is acceptable. I cannot recommend the Bazaar until this is fixed. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and leaving a comment to help it not get lost in the YouTube algorithm. If you're interested, there will be a written version of this review posted on noisypixel.com, and I post reviews and retrospectives on their YouTube channel along with here. There should be a review on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth going up there later this month.